And as such, though the persons who are here, like you, are very, very young, we'll try to tailor what we're doing to also suit your needs. And though I just have 1 hour, because Mr. Geno Jacob is going to take over and do short story for you. Geno Jacob is a counterpart of mine who, well, around the same time we developed, we both went to the University of Florida on a fellowship to do writing, where we met guys like, I don't know if you guys heard people of Derek Walcott and Mervyn Morris. Derek Walcott is world-renowned, St. Lucian, one of the greatest poets in the world of these times. And he died a couple of years ago. I think last year, year before last. Can't remember clearly right now, but he died recently. At least since during the COVID virus, he passed away somehow. So basically, we're glad to be tutored by those persons, and we have kept on writing since. In the days when Geno Jacob dominated short story writing, I dominated poetry writing. I've not been doing much writing poetry nowadays. I'm more into songs and so on, because I write for a number of calypsonians, female calypsonians, a lot of Tasha Pease and so. I'm a writer, and a number of other artists that I write for. So I'm really happy you could join us and be here as part of the workshop today. Basically, I'm going to ask you a question to start. What is poetry? What do you think when you hear somebody say about poetry? What do you think is poetry? What is that about? This word they call poetry. What is poetry? Anybody? Don't think your answer is a silly answer. All answers are good, you know. What is poetry? What do you think is poetry in your mind? What do you think is poetry? Because there are various people describe poetry in various forms. And it does not necessarily have to be, no way is really the right way in terms of poetry. But I want to hear your perception. What do you feel is poetry? When you come to school as a young lady, and they tell you in your class, what school you go to? Salisbury? Right. Do you do poetry there? Have you ever had a poem done? Right. So when your teacher says, okay, I'm going to do poetry, what are you thinking? They tell you about poetry. What are you thinking? Any one of you? What do you think when you hear about poetry? Yes, of course, of course. See, I started for you. Now, in your thoughts? What is it? Because poetry, yeah, if you think you know, don't think any answer is silly. Of course. Oh, you look at the meaning, okay? Presentation or some expression, right? Okay. Trimmings, everything, yes, Right. Okay. Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. And why I say that poetry doesn't have any specific, because from Wordsworth to Shakespeare, whatever, all these guys have different expressions of poems. But they know it's basically expressing emotions on paper. And when I went to the University of Miami, Florida, I was told by my tutor, Mr. Mervyn Morris, that poetry basically is utilizing the economy of words. He just puts it in that way, the economy of words, to express feelings. The economy of words. Of course, Derek Walcott has another long explanation for what is poetry and so on. And he also defines what he thinks is poetry. As a matter of fact, Derek Walcott was one of those that did not hold a very high view of performance poetry. And have you heard of performance poetry? Where people perform the poems instead of just saying them off the page? In the Caribbean, we have been taught to believe that poetry is boring. So even when I went to school, and I always like writing, I must be honest, but then when I was told in third form, I think, we were doing Shakespeare, I say Shakespeare, and I like literature. It's going to be boring and stuff and things. So, but then later on in life, when I started getting introduced to other forms of poetry, where they put drums to it and rhythm and beats. And I'm sure some of you might have heard Amanda Gorman's poem for the inauguration of, right? Joe Biden? Right, you heard it? You loved it? Yes, wonderful poem and expressive and so on. So poems can be performed also. It's not just a matter of just saying it off the page or reading off the page. A poem can sound very boring just reading it on the page. But when you see somebody perform the poem, which we call performance poetry, and two of the exponents we had in that in Dominica already started going was guys like Rasmo. Have you heard the name Rasmo? Delmas Moses, a Golden Drum Award also, and Gregory Rabes. Some of those formative names in actually performing poetry. And so that is another way we can express our feelings and moods. So there's no specific expression to poetry. Of course, the classics, the classical guys will give you their own interpretation of poetry. People like Mutabaruka and Mikey Smith has Caribbeanized poetry to make it performance, because we as African descendants, we are into drumming and music and timing and rhyme schemes and so on. And we love our poems to rhyme. Okay, that's one of the ways we can remember and keep a rhythm and a syntax for a poem. So, tap, tap. So every time, if you guys listen to rap music, so the rappers always have something, you know, I go in town when the clock strikes 9 or the so this beat always goes on. And you find that Caucasian people are not too much into that sort of rhyme scheme, but we as Caribbean people, we are into that. So, first thing I want you to know about poetry is that everybody can write a poem. But you can put down words on paper, but there's a way to craft it. And I like what you said about making it very short, because Derek Walcott actually taught us another level, because Derek Walcott brought out a book of poetry. In fact, one poem, which is an entire book of many, many pages, called Omerous. One of the longest poems in the world was written in a book, a big, thick book, one poem. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be short. And so Mervyn Morris might be on the short side. Before I met Mervyn Morris in person, I did poetry of him at school for CXC. There's a very famous poem called The Pond that you'll find in books like Bite In and certain stories. And when I met the guy, I was so elated because he writes very short poems, because he believes he can exercise his expression, what he wants to say, in one word. One or two words, a sentence, a phrase, can carry so much more meaning. So somebody might come and say, write a piece of prose and say, you know, we must be very careful about what we're doing nowadays, because we must treat our neighbors right and so on, because tomorrow, you know, things may happen to us, it might fall back on us, and karma is the real thing, and what and what and what and what. And the preacher man might tell that in a sermon and say, no, we must treat our neighbors right, you know, love thy neighbor as thyself, and whatever, 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 and things so, you know. And the poet basically, as Bob Marley liked to see him as a poet, he just comes with one line and encompasses that entire sermon. When the rain falls, it doesn't fall on one man's housetop. That's it. That's a poem. By just making that statement, he's encompassing everything that was said in that whole piece of prose and bring a story to make you understand that you must treat your neighbors right. Or sermon, which is said. There's a situation happened in Trinidad many years ago where a priest was accused and brought to court for bestiality, interfering with a goat. Sexual intercourse, would you believe it? With a goat. And the front page on the paper in Trinidad and Tobago and the Guardian with all kind of highfalutin language, you know. Because, you know, when you're a poor person in Dominica, they'll say, oh, you thief money or you bubble. But when you're a rich person, they'll say embezzlement. Because rich people don't steal, rich people embezzle. So there's a connotation to that. So on the papers, they had sort of nice language. And if you're a young person and not very schooled and educated, when you read the article, you'll say, wow, you know, you'd almost think as if, well, Mr. did a good thing, you know, and the language that was used. And Chuck Duss, who is also a poet and a calypsonian and a writer, Chuck Duss took that same inspiration that was put on the front page of the papers. And whilst that information eluded a lot of people about what the priest did and whatever, there's not much talk about it in Trinidad. He came on stage And if his first line, he just said, oh, it was a sheep. He said, meh. That's how his song started. So his song started, and he said, meh. From the time he said that, the whole crowd was in the ear. Didn't know what he was going to sing. Then he said about, and he phrased it to mean that how a priest was somewhere giving a ram goat baptism. And that told the story. So just by 2 short lines, the whole story is told. So poetry really is the economy of words. And to be able to use words like that, to visualize and make people see things, picture things, there's a craft involved in poetry. And so, anybody who's doing poetry must master the craft. You must know about words, the use of words. You have to be able to use what you call metaphors. You must be able to use your metaphors. And I'm sure some of you all are learning at school. You must be able to use similes. You must be able to use personification. Right? You have to be able to use that. Right? And these are 3 of the main things. You have to be able to also use, you have to be able to allude to something. Allusion. Does anybody know what is allusion? Yeah, it comes from the word allude. Okay? So if you're mentioning something and you, for instance, if you see somebody come there and you see they have a cross, a big cross in the neck, what does that suggest to you? Person is a Christian. Person might be a priest or something. So the person expose themselves into the faith. So if you say something about it, and you write in a poem, and you talk about the cross, right away you're alluding to, you're sort of kind of evoking some sentiments of Christianity or something like that. So in a poem, you have to actually say that. It will be in the poem. Yes, so basically, we're trying to juxtapose 2 things. Just sorry, they're on the air with the diaspora clip. I'll come back. So, yeah, I'm talking to myself. That's General Jacob, by the way, and we're doing a program also. So, basically, what we're saying is that I would like you to look at just an exercise, which I'm going to make you do very quickly, and I'm going to come back. And that is the exercise. I'm going to distribute something to you. And we're going to be looking first at organizing rhyme schemes. Rhyme schemes. And probably have to do 1 for 2 because you could just tear it off because we have around 5 of them on one sheet there and pass it on. Tear it out. We have 5 of them probably on one sheet. You're at the back. All right. And we're going to be looking at those poems or those piece of prose, sample 1. Let's do sample 1 first. What do you have, sample 1 or sample 2? Okay, sample 2. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Let's start with sample 2. Sample 2, let's tear it out. And we're going to see how we can bring out a rhyme scheme with that particular piece of prose. It's a piece of prose, but I'm going to give you 5 minutes to look at that scheme and see if you can put it together to make it be a rhyme scheme of probably AA, BB, or AB, right? An AB rhyme scheme. So that means AA will be sat and mat, right? And that would be joy and toy, say for instance. And here would be, with juxtaposed, we'd have sat here, we'd have mat, and we'd have joy, and we'd have toy. So do that for me, and then we continue. I'll get back to you. Yeah, I'll just hold on a while. Let me a copy. I don't have a copy with me. Anybody has a copy to learn? No? Okay. Okay, let me hear your first one. Your first line ends with what? The word, your first line. This is sample 2. Yeah. What ends it? Way. Okay. Uh-huh. Second line. Second line is what? They. They? Oh, they. Oh, sorry. They. Sorry. Uh-huh. Next line. Hull, uh-huh. Gull, uh-huh. More. Ashore. Uh-huh. Deep and keep. So, we have a AABB rhyme scheme here. AABB rhyme scheme here. AABB. And I guess everybody knows why we say AABB, right? The rhyme scheme follows. Or it could be... Right, that's another way, land and sand. In the same one, number 2? Number 2, right, land and sand, right. Well, let me look at that closely. The people along the sand all turn and look one way. Their back turn along the land. I think that's how the poet actually meant it, actually. The people along the sand, one line, all turn, look one way. Second line. They took the turn upon the sand, and they look at the sun all day. So I think that's how it was actually, as along the ship and so on. So you can even see line breaks are also very important, because there was there's a little joke I always give my students. I tell them, well, there's a tourist on a vehicle, or a guy was driving some tourist on a vehicle, and then the guy said, well, the tourist said, oh, saw something in the road, and said, wow, what is this in the road ahead? And the guy mashes brakes, you know, thinking somebody's head was in the road. But you're just saying, what is it in the road ahead? So breaking your lines are also very important into what you're trying to convey, you know, in an actually poetic piece. So we wouldn't go through all this long stuff, because we just have an hour, and I want to hand over to Jeno. But I want us to go through a poem called, this is a dark time, Contemplation Flowers. Let's look at this poem. You have it in your hand somewhere. Contemplation upon Flowers. We're going to dissect that poem. And we're going to look at some of the things that we have heard about. This is one of my favorite school poems. We always use it at school sometimes. It's by Henry King. I think he's Jamaican or Guyanese. You don't have that one? I think I asked you all to bring that, to circulate it for me. Contemplation upon Flowers. Oh, I thought I gave it, okay. Contemplation upon Flowers. Brave flowers.
This poem shall speak of the wretched sea that washed ships to these shores, of mothers crying for their young swallowed up by the sea. This poem shall say nothing new. This poem shall speak of time, time unlimited, time undefined. This poem shall call names, names like Lumumba, Kenyatta, Nkrumah, Hannibal, Akhenaton, Malcolm, Garvey, Haile Selassie. This poem is vexed about apartheid, racism, fascism, the Ku Klux Klan, riots in Brixton, Atlanta, Jim Jones. This poem is revolting against first world, second world, third world, division, man-made decision. This poem is like all the rest. This poem will not be amongst great literary works, will not be recited by poetry enthusiasts. It will not be quoted by politicians or men of religions. This poem is knives, bombs, guns, blood, fire, blazing for freedom. Yes, This poem is a drum. Ashanti, Ma Ma, Igbo, Yoruba, Nyabingi warriors, Yohuro, Namibia, Yohuro Soweto, Yohuro Africa. This poem will not change things. This poem need to be changed. This poem is a rebirth of a people, a rising, awakening, understanding. This poem speaks, is speaking, have spoken. This poem shall continue even when poets have stopped writing. This poem shall survive you, me. It shall linger in history, in your mind, in time, forever. This poem is time, only time will tell. This poem is still not written. This poem has no poet. This poem is just a part of the story. His story, her story, our story. The story still untold. This poem is now ringing, talking, irritating, making you want to stop it. But this poem will not stop. This poem is long, cannot be short. This poem cannot be tamed, cannot be blamed. The story is still not told about this poem. This poem is old, new. This poem was copied from the Bible, your prayer book, Playboy magazines, the New York Times, Reader's Digest, the CIA files, the KGB files. This poem is no secret. This poem shall be called boring, stupid, senseless. This poem is watching you trying to make sense from this poem. This poem is messing up your brains, making you want to stop listening to this poem. But you shall not stop listening this poem. You need to know what will be said next in this poem. This poem shall disappoint you because this poem is to be continued in your mind, in your mind, in your mind, in your mind, in your mind.
Too much as yet, but there's something about flowers and ladies. Ladies love flowers, and in some cultures, flowers is a big thing. When you bring a flower for your wife or your girlfriend or your, whatever it is, bring a little flower and the smile lights them up. So there's something about flowers. And it's saying that you came and made a harmless show. Just not boastful, just very humble, but in your own way, it's a show. Because flowers represents beauty. And to your beds of earth again. Because flowers, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. The flowers came from the bed of earth. You know when you're making a flower garden, you always have to make a little bed and so on. Plant your flowers or plant your stuff. So that's what it is. So basically, that word bed is what you call in writing a pun. Bed as in your bed at home, and bed as in a flower garden. Okay? So Ron, you are not proud, and we said already, you know your birth. Let me hear from one of the little ones. What does the writer mean you know your birth? Do you know your birth? Anyone of you know your birth? Do you know your birth? I don't ask where you were born, you know. Do you know your birth? What do you mean by that? No. If I ask you if you do know your birth date, you'll give me the date when you're born. But if I tell you, I know my birth, you know. You're talking to me and telling me something. I tell you, I know my birth. Where I'm from. And what does that from means? If I'm from Giro de la Collio, where does that from means? Huh? My origin, myself, my status. Okay. Right. So my background, basically. You're talking about my background. Okay? Some people, when they come and they achieve certain things in life, they forget where they came from. So that's what they're trying to say. They know their birth. Okay? So some people remember their birth. Now it goes on. For your embroidered garments are from earth. You know, flowers can be very beautiful. Some of the petals have some kind of design. They call that embroidery. And ladies don't do that. You miss you into sewing, right? So you should know about that. It's from the earth. Everything that the flower possesses, everything that we as human beings possess, is from the earth. It came from a source. It doesn't belong to us. Eventually it goes back there. But the poet goes on. You do obey your months and times. Can you obey months and times? Has a month ever spoken to you yet? A time have spoken to you already? Huh? Says speaking to you yet. Well, let me ask you, ladies, then, have a month ever spoken to you? What does the poet mean by that? Obey your months and times. Your seasons, right. Right. And there's a beautiful verse in the Bible that talks about that, right? So everything there's a season, a time to reap, a time to cry, a time to die, whatever. Right. So he's saying that the flower obeys that. But I know, I mean who? The person that writer, right? I. And that I represents the universal I, that man would always want to have its spring. We always want to be young. Always in full bloom. So you find the ladies, especially in the United States of America and those places, they have to go and put tummy tucks and breasts and butts and everything else to make them always look young when they are actually of age. They always want to look in the, they want to look like a spring chicken, so it actually means that. Why would you want to be 80-something years and dressed in a certain way and be in a triplicate jam with your hand on the ground booging down? What you want to do that for? Huh? Would you like to see your grandfather in a triplicate jam with you? Huh? No. Cannot always have it spring. Your time passed. There's a certain season. You have to accept there are seasons in life when certain things happen and you have to act like it. So that's what the poet is saying. He's saying that my faith would know no winter. He doesn't want to know any winter. Never die. Nor think of such a thing. Oh, that I could my bed of earth but view and smile and look as cheerfully as you. So all of the flowers are there right on the earth where it has to go back to. They still appear so blossom, with so much blossom and smile and, well, you know, nice and spruce and so on. And he's saying, oh, I just wish I could keep on staring down that lane of death, knowing my mortality and remain as beautiful and nice as you. That's what basically he's saying. Oh, teach me to see death and not to fear, but rather to take truce. That means make peace with persons that you might have harmed or something so. How often have I seen you? You see in the flower, he's speaking to the flower, how often have I seen you at a bear? And you know the bear is the thing that they carry the coffin on. The thing like the trolley, or they call it a bear. That you put the coffin on and you move it along the aisle in the church, that's a bear. And he's saying that, and look, and there looks fresh and spruce. Your fragrant flowers. Then teach me that my breath, like yours, may sweeten and perfume my death. Now that's a very important line, that last line there. Your fragrant flowers, then teach me that my breath, like yours, may sweeten and perfume my death. How can your death be perfumed? How can your breath perfume your death? Or your last breath? Because perfume, I've never seen people relate perfume and death together. As a matter of fact, when you die, you rot, and there's supposed to be a stench, and you will not identify that stench as perfume. So basically, that's almost like an oxymoron. Perfume my death, yes.
What I was thinking from that line is the fact that E.D. Writer speaking from this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he died, these are the same flowers that will line his coffin, his grave,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I could be wrong, but that's what I saw from it. That you fragrant flowers will should not go to my death.
Mm-hmm.
So even as he admiring them now, when he goes, they are the same flowers that will be there
Mm-hmm.
at the time of his death.
Yes, that is the way to look at it. And that's a new way to look at it. That's the beauty of poetry. But the area probably we have left out in that, and I understand what you're saying, that my breath like yours. Mm-hmm. So before the flower dies now, what role has the flower played in life before it died? Ah, so we're getting there. Yes, the flower has actually perfumed the world with what it has done. The display of roses, the smell. People smell flowers and so on. So he's saying that even when we die, he's hoping that when he dies, he would have left something that can perfume the world. Something you can remember by. Okay? A lot of times you see some big funeral, and normally when you see a big funeral, most times because somebody, that person who has died, impacted so many people in different ways that they feel they must be there to show their last respect. Of course, with funerals on social media, that doesn't really exist too much again. You always feel you can always call someone to film it and so on. So yes, you always feel that you want to, so he's hoping that he's seen that he can take an example from the flowers in the field, and that is also very, very important. Now finally, guys, I want to introduce you to, we spoke about different, I think we spoke about the different types of poetry. We have free verse, I want to just talk about them. We have free verse, but there's no rhyme. I'm not sure if you have that paper. We have free verse where there's no rhyme. You have it already? I'm not sure, I think I get that one already, Okay, that's what I'm talking about now, yeah. Free verse. We have free verse where there's no rhyme scheme really. Okay? We have epics. Epics give you a whole long story, mainly of historical significance. So if I want to write an epic about the old mill, that would be an epic. You guys talking about historical things, I'll talk about the slaves and the children of the mill and the beatings people got. That would be an epic poem. Okay? Narrative poem is like a story. Okay? You're telling a story. Okay? The haiku, we won't go through that. It's a Japanese poem, just a 3-line poem basically. The first line is 7, second line is, the first line is 5, second line is 7, and the third line is 5 also. We leave out that pastoral poetry because I'll take another one that's popular, the sonnet. Usually about love, normally a 14-line poem. That's one of the most popular poems you can find in most textbooks, is the sonnet. Speaks about love and beauty and those things, about nature, when you write about nature and so. Yeah, and they are normally A-B rhyme scheme poems in that respect. Now, there's also what we call performance poetry. Performance poetry. And I think I give you something about Mutabaruka. You must have something about Mutabaruka there. Yeah, you must have that there. It's together, colonization reverse. It's together. Oh no, sorry, this poem? Yeah, this poem. Okay, you have this poem. Written by Mutabaruka, actually. This poem. Yeah. So he's one of those guys. I'm not seeing this poem, man. Wait down. This poem. I'm not finding it among my poems, huh? Yeah, well, she'll get it there. Yeah, I'm actually not seeing that. I don't want to waste my own. Well, this is one of the performance poets of today. Called Mutabaruka. He has something called this poem. And when you go home on YouTube, I'd like you to listen to it. Because the way he expresses this poem. And he has a number of poems. And he's a performance poet, just like Mickey Smith from Jamaica, who was stoned because he was a revolutionary poet, and akin to what we had Rasmo in Dominica, Gregory Rabes. These are performance poets. These are poets that take poems off the page and perform your poems with various syntax and expressions and so on. And to hear Mutabaruka say this poem, I'd like you to look it up when you go home. You can get it on YouTube. This poem, okay? And it's a revolutionary poem done by Mutabaruka. And even before that, we had a lady called Louise Bennett. Louise Bennett. And let's look at colonization reverse. You have that one? Colonization reverse. I think I have several of them there. Oh, you should have it, yeah. You have it? I feel you'll have that. You'll have it somewhere. You must have that somewhere. Oh, okay. It's by Louis Bennett. That's one of the first performance persons in the Caribbean. And I'm not even getting her work now. Other people perform her work, but I'm not getting her original. She died many years ago. And I was talking about just bringing out an expression where we, as you know, many of you people did history, and you young people did history, or do history at school, and you know we are colonized by Britain and so on. And basically, we are now saying that we will go in. They will come in here, basically, and now it's the reverse. People are now going to England. That was during the time when we had the federal maple. You young people will know that about the federal maple and so. And the federal palm. They used to come here in Dominica and all over the Caribbean and go and work in England. So there are a number of Dominicans, grandparents, who left Dominica in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s to go to England to look for work. Remember the first time English people came here and they took our lands and enslaved people here. So she's looking at it from another perspective, with another eye. She's saying how now that we're colonizing Britain in reverse. So this one is called Colonization in Reverse. What a joyful news, Miss Matty. I feel like my heart go a bust. Jamaica people colonizing England in reverse. By the 100, by the 1,000, from country and from tongue. By the shipload, by the plane load, Jamaica is England bound. Them a pour out of Jamaica, every future plan, everybody future plan is to get big time job and settle in the motherland. What a island, what a people. Man and woman, old and young, just a pack up bag and baggage and turn history upside down. Some people do like travel, but we show them loyalty. Them all are open up cheap fare to England agency. And week by week, them shipping off, them country like fire, for immigrate and populate the seat of the empire. You know see how life is funny? You know see the turnaround? Jamaica leave free bread box out of people, English people mouth. For when we catch England and start playing them different rule, some will settle down to work and some will settle for the dole. Jane said the dole not too bad because she paying she £2 a week for a job. That suits she dignity. And the poem goes on, give you a whole synopsis. Now, I'm reading this to show you, and that's another one you can look up, that performance poetry actually relays what happens within your society and makes it in a very applicable way, in a palatable way, a nice way, because this could have been written a poem very straight like the English poems that we know. But by giving that flavor and taste, and in your twang and in your dialect, it allows people in your community to be able to relate to it. And so if I were to say one thing to you young people is that do not think of poetry as something that the white man does or you see something in a book. You can be a poem. You can express things within your country. As a matter of fact, poetry can change things and how people look at things. That's what theater and arts is all about. Sometimes when people read things in the paper, they really take it for granted. But when a calypsonian sing it, when they hear it in a poem, when they hear it in a song, if you go and watch a play and you see something you like to do, and you really sit in the place where you start introspecting, you start watching yourself, boy, it's just so unfortunate, boy, you know. That's the power of poetry. And so the power of words. But to express those words and make use of your metaphors and your similes and your personifications, you must read other people's work. Too many people say they are poets or writers and they cannot identify. I've asked guys, young guys already, they come on World Poetry Day, 16th of October every year is World Poetry Day. And they come at the Old Mill right here and they recite poems sometimes. And you ask them, well, who's your favorite poet? They don't know one. because they don't read other people's work. They think they are a poet up to themselves. But you must read. That is one of the virtues that we are losing, is to read. So what I'd like you to do, as your homework, is that take up anything in your society, be it on the pandemic, be it on whatever it is, and use it and craft a poem, something you feel strong about. Create a rhyme scheme around it, a AA rhyme scheme, a ABB rhyme scheme, or AB rhyme scheme. Okay? Here's one. You know, Dominicans, like people always like to say, oh, they say, or I don't know. People always like to say, people always say things, but I say, when they follow up and say, oh, who said that? They say, me say, I don't know now. People never know. So this one, I'd like you to participate with me as an example. And it was written many, many years ago when I was in Marigot, Wesley, and it's called Me No No. So when I put a banner on, you'll say it. Me no no, me no no, me no no. 3 times. Me no no, me no no, me no no. One more time. Okay. Them say, me no know. What me know, them no know. But me know what me know. Who no know? Me no know. Because when me gaze and me see all them things, believe me, it's just a whole heap of turmoil and misery. Because it's just a gun, a bomb, a hatred and corruption. When will it end? Them say, DA have feed a road. But I have no feed them out. But me go tell you straight. Wait, and me go tell you why. Because every day me see banana go to waste. And them still say it had no work in the place. What a case. So when you see me watching TV and relaxing and don't care about nobody, it's because I well know what I know. But me no know if you know. Okay. An extract from me no know. So basically it's a call and response. You can also, because we are call and response people, when we go in the church, I'm not a Catholic, but people, I'm a Catholic, things like what all those response in the Catholic church, when you say something, and if you also, amen, you say something? So call and response. So that is part of all culture. That's a part of the African culture that they actually took, you know. It's not really English culture or whatever. It actually comes from African. We are call and response people, you know. And basically, when we say something, we like a response to it. Chorus, call and response, call and response. So when we were enslaved, they take that as part of our culture and they incorporated that. So even on our prayers, they basically use that, you know, so for us to get us back into the sermon, because before, all our priests used to actually come from those countries where they spoke Latin. Latin was the tongue. And they used to say things, my grandmother used to just sit and just repeat, not even knowing what they're repeating. So after a time, they realized to get us into the whole stuff. They found, well, okay, one of the strong points about the African people is that they're oral. We don't write down things, but we can chant back and repeat things and so on. So that call and response happens in our songs, it happens in our poetry, it happens in our prose, and every factor of life, we are call and respond people. So you too can write your own stuff, get your own rhythm, a little drum rhythm, and you can make a little poem around that. You know what I mean? And make a little poem about that. So that is what I want you all guys to do, and maybe one day, you drop it at the cultural division, I'm going to give you a little prize. Write a nice little 2-verse poem, at least, minimum. 6 lines each, so that's 12 lines, 2 stanzas. And write something, anything about the pandemic, about school, about whatever it is, about life, anything you're experiencing you want to bring to light, do that, and you can probably submit that to the office or get to your mother to submit or whatever, in care of Ian Jackson. I'll give you a little prize. Okay? That's why, and it's just an hour, so it is very short. There's so much to say about poetry. So thank you for listening, guys. And I'll hand over to General Jacob, my compatriot. Thank you very much.
We go in and take the country to tongue. And we don't care what they say about our accent, like Lapo Fig, about the way we speak. Or we go in and take the country to tongue. And we don't care what they say about our accent, like Lapo Fig, about the way we speak our patois quick. We go in and take the country to tongue. We go and take Bele, Bamboo Fruit, Cocoa, Tori, Mazouk, and Kotu. with our history behind us, our culture before us, we're going to show tongue people who is the who, pel, pick, wa, fact. Anyway, I'm just following on Ian's, I just saw what performance poetry. All right? So, I was listening attentively, en passant, just passing by, to what Mr. Jackson was saying. And it's important that we, as he said, read a lot. Right? I read everything. I used to read everything. At your age, my young lady, I used to read everything. From comics to Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew. Trust me. I used to consume everything. They used to have the Time magazine at that time. Everything. Just name it. The Bible, Tutbagay. So you have to read. And also you have to listen, right? Listen to the older folks. Listen to your parents. All right? Listen to your teachers. Listen to your peers. All right? Other people. Because it's important that you gather knowledge. And the knowledge that you gather is important when you are writing a story or a poem. That knowledge, that information that you have internally within yourself, that's what moves you forward. All right? And gives you this background information for writing whatever piece you choose to write. I'd like someone to read one of the stories for me, My Real Papa Noel, so we can start into this session. I'm going to make it short and sweet and to the point. And for any reader, volunteer reader, yes, ma'am, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to look at three main important things, right? The beginning of the story. And can someone write? Wait. The beginning of the story. The beginning, a story. Yes. Beginning. Got the erasers on. All right. Yeah, let me get. Yeah, that's coming right. A story has three parts, right? The beginning, the middle, and the end. But between the the end. Or a big word for it is the denouement or the outcome. You'll learn that later on, whatever. It's important to know it. So the beginning, the middle, and the end. Okay? So you have the beginning of the story. What happens between the beginning and the middle? What happens after the middle and towards the end? That is called drama, conflict, you understand? For example, you meet your friend, right? She came from America, okay? You just met her, you're Dominican, right? Then she came from America, probably your uncle brought her down or someone. You became friends, then you lost her. Lost doesn't mean that she died, but she left, and she went back to America, all right? Okay? And in the end, you met your friend again. You understand that? Girl, or let's say boy. Boy meets girl. Boy loses girl. Boy meets girl. That's called a plot, a plan. You understand? Like building a house, you have a plan. But between that plot, between that plan, boy meets girl is the beginning, right? Boy loses girl is the... Right. And boy meets girl is the... Voila, you're picking up. Right. But what happens between? There can be drama. Yes, there can be conflict because you lost her because a friend of yours went to give her some kind of a old talk about you. You understand? Because she went to America, or she was sick, she was in a hospital. So all this and what causes her to leave and what causes her or him to return. So all these are conflicts which you can, and drama which you can develop as the writer. And it's important that you learn those things. All right? Oh, we still don't have a marker. But you can jot that down. Beginning, middle, and end. And and you have plot. All right? Plot is how you as the writer, how you decide to carry the story forward. And they call the temporal plot. 1, 2, 3. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy meets girl. 1, 2, 3. You have to find out. Beginning, middle, end. Short. Beginning, middle, and the end. And you have the end. Plot. P-L-O. Story. All right. And below your plot. P-L-O-T. Okay? So we understand how we go about plotting a story. It's like you're making a garden. I put my dash in there. In the end, I went to the market. I sell, I didn't sell. You understand? The outcome, the end of it, as you mentioned. All right. Now, you have descriptive writing, different types of writing, how to describe, right? And descriptive writing, it's important that your characters, you have your villain, or you have your hero, and the person who's against the hero then. Understand that? Protagonist and antagonist. Pro means your hero, and anti-antagonist means the person who is against, right? How do you describe those characters to make the story, to bring the story forward, to make the story interesting, right? People like characters who are adventurous, okay? And as you mentioned, young lady, the beginning of your sentence topic, how you introduce your story is very important. And there are ways of introducing a story, starting a story. There's what they call the atmosphere. You understand the atmosphere? As an example, the atmosphere is, it's a bright day. The sun was out shining. That's the atmosphere. You understand? The clouds were out. It was raining. If you're in a garden setting, you could say, or the seashore, you could say, by the bayside, you could say, well, the waves were crashing, and the waves were doing this, or the wind was blowing strong, the fishermen were rowing. So it gives people a scenery, an idea of where you are, right? Yeah, atmosphere, and scenery, right? So your atmosphere will start by explaining the exact area where you are, right? An idea of where you're located. And your scene has to do with describing, let's say in this room, how this room is. What's the setting of that room? What because your reader is trying to visualize. All right? Visualize everything. Now, characterization. In Dominica, we have a number of interesting characters. We have the policemen. We have who again? Huh? Nurses, who again? Teachers, who again? Huh? Firefighters. We have the paros, not true? Huh? You have the drug dealers, right? Mindful of that, right? You have the drunkards, the man who coming home. Why is he doing that, coming home that way? And because he's drunk, but why is he drunk? Why is he drunk? Huh? He drank rum, but why did he drink the rum? Why is he drinking rum? And he's going home drinking. Your atmosphere, you're describing that Mr. Whoever ever is going home in a drunken way. That's your open sentence, you know. You're beginning, right? And you're describing Mr. Whoever. You have to describe who he is. So you read an understanding of how he's dressed. Right. Why is he going home in a drunken state? Is it that because every time he goes home, his wife gives him a lot of deba, trouble, so when he's drunk, he's okay, what happened, family? You understand? Right? So you as the writer can develop all those kind of things within your having idea of your existential reality, of your existential realities, of your surroundings, of how you live. There are cultural aspects also. Those of us who have gone to the countryside, let's say you go to Grand Bay to meet our grannies, or the countryside, Marigot, Wesley, those areas there, in the garden setting, we have met with animals, right? Of grandfather or uncle who's raising animals, pigs, right? Dogs, and dogs have different names, donkeys, you know, cows, and goats, and usually, yes, our cats in at home, we usually give them pet names, right? And one of those pet names we call pigs are what? We call our pig in the country, Choo-Choo, Forget that, man. All over. Yeah. Chocho, right? Chocho, right? So I'm calling on Miss Della to read us an interesting story. And this story was read by Franklin Moses for Christmas last year. It's called My Real Papa Noel. What I want us to pick up there is the beginning, the middle, and the end. And the plot, right? This description, how they describe the characters, how the young boy, and who is the hero there, and who is the person who is against the hero, right? Protagonist, antagonist, culturalization, right? How do I have to do with Dominica's culture? Do you feel an aspects of Dominica's culture in there, right? And during Christmas time, how many of us have gone to the country? I mean the country, I mean not Roseau, but I mean Dominica's a country, but I mean outside of Roseau. Yes. How many of us have heard or seen farmers slaughter their pigs? You? Yeah? Huh? Speak out. You have seen a farmer kill his pig, slaughter his pig? Uh-huh. All right. On Haiti? Or Santo Domingo? All right? All right. So, just read us the story and then...
Okay, My Real Papa Noel. The nights were cold in December. I slept with Granny's thick woolen sweater over my pajama. Granny said that the fouedi, or cold winds, came from America and the North Pole. I've always dreamt of America and imagined the North Pole, especially during Christmas. The trees were covered with snow and the mountains blanketed with ice. In the North Pole, that's where Santa lives, Granny said. Papa Noel, or Father Christmas, and his red-nosed reindeer Rudolph, which looks like a giant goat. I had seen them in the magazines, which covered the groceries and clothes in the barrels my father would send to us. My papa was in America. I have never seen him. Granny told me he left when I was 1 year old. He was heartbroken after my mom died giving birth to me. I was left in my grandmother's care, and my father would support me as he could. I carried his picture with me in my school bag. He was tall, handsome, and dark, with short locks on his head. I would kiss his picture and smile. Granny said he could not come to see us because he was waiting on his American green card. She said it was a sacrifice he was forced to make. He would call us on the phone, and I always welcomed his deep, caring voice. He lived with Granny's boyfriend, Mr. Garbaz. Sorry, we lived with Granny's boyfriend, Mr. Garbaz. She met him after Hurricane Maria, which had destroyed our wooden house. Granny quarreled that the village council was slow in helping her, so she moved in with him for rescue. I did not like Mr. Garbaz. He was always drunk and loved to beat my pig, Chocho. Chocho was my friend. She was a month old when Granny bought her. She understood everything I said when I brought her the leftovers from the kitchen. Now she was 3 months old. Chocho, Chocho, oh Chocho, I would call whenever I approached the tree and the pool of brown soft mud where she was tied. Gruff, 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 she would answer gleefully. I would clean her trough and pour her, or her trough, and pour her food. She ate a lot, so I would cut open some dry coconuts for her snack. After she was done, I would scratch her stomach. She would lie on her back and grunt softly. Mado, Mado oi, Mr. Gaba said to Granny one day Kosho sala unila. That pig you have there, I killing it for Christmas. Mweka tiwe mwaka chwe pour Noel. It's Johnny's pig, not mine, Granny replied. Johnny pig, your pig, my pig, he said drunkenly. Whoever pig it dying for Christmas. No, Granny, I replied. Don't let Mr. Gabas kill Chocho. Please, Granny. Chocho is my friend. I have no brother or sister to play with, and I raised her from small. Don't let Mr. Gabas kill my pig. But there was nothing she could do or say to change his mind. He chatted all through the week about black pudding and stewed pork, and that the meat was already sold even before he killed the pig. Chocho is a big pig now, Johnny. Chocho is a big pig now, Johnny, Granny said. It takes a lot of your time. You have to study your schoolwork. I just do my schoolwork while Chocho eating we, I replied. Granny did not answer, but started singing. One day at a time, sweet Jesus, that's all I'm asking of you. She was stressed by Mr. Garbaz, who always comes home drunk. I'll give you room in your house, she told him during a quarrel. Do what you want, Mado, he shouted. I already asked the Haitian farmer for $50 chive to make the blood pudding. I have a garden with dashing and 2 mound of ladies' yam to eat with my stew pork. I was sad. I must save Chocho. Oh, I know, I said to myself while walking home from school one day. I will get a boyfriend for Chocho. Our neighbor Samuel had a boar. It was huge. So Mr. Samuel named him Goliath. Mr. Samuel disliked Mr. Garbaz, whom he accused of stealing his dashing plants. Mr. Samuel, I called to him, holding a bucket of pig food in my hands. Can I bring Chocho for Goliath? What do you mean? He replied. To see Goliath? To be Goliath's girlfriend, sir, I answered. Goliath's girlfriend? Mr. Samuel laughed loudly, beating his cutlass against his black knee-high rubber boots. Yes, sir, I said. When she make little ones, I will give you a male. All right, Mr. Samuel mused. You strike a good bargain for a 10-year-old boy. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, I said with joy. Can I bring her today? She's not ready yet, he said. I'll observe her and I'll tell you when to bring her. 2 weeks later, Mr. Samuel allowed me to bring Chocho to meet Goliath. I stood there while they kissed and jumped on each other's back. That's it, Mr. Samuel laughed. Now they are girlfriend and boyfriend. As the months drew closer to Christmas, Chocho's belly grew bigger and her breasts were full, pointed and round. Mado, Madoi, Mr. Gabo said one day in November. Ou sav cochon a plein? You know the pig full? It preggy, it pregnant. I don't know anything about pig, she answered. You don't know about pig, eh? All right, but I suspect it's Samuel, that buo, the bastard, rapist pig, Goliath, that escaped and committed that crime. Now I cannot kill the pig. All the while I saying is fat the pig fat. Mweka di se gwa cochon gwa. I laughed. Chocho and I had won. A week before Christmas, farmers were bringing their animals home for slaughter. At night, we heard the last terrifying squeals of pigs at the dying mows of frightening cows and the dying moos of frightening cows and the loud defiance of goats, all victims of the butcher's knives. The air smelled like rusty blood and burnt animals' hooves and skins. The daily blowing of conch shells from the prepared corners of the village announced the early sale of Christmas meats. Chocho gave birth to 10 piglets. Mr. Samuel had slaughtered Goliath. He needed the money to replant his farm after the hurricane. He said he would replace the boar with the piglet I would give to him. Some neighbors paid Granny in advance for 8 piglets. I decided to keep one of Chocho's sons. 2 days before Christmas, Granny bathed me in soursop leaves. She said it would make me sleep soundly. Put your socks by your head, she said, and leave the window open. Papa Noel will bring you a gift in the night. I awoke just before 5 o'clock in the morning. I rolled over on the bedding of old worn and torn clothes, which was my mattress. I felt a cold object beside me. It was a new red bicycle. I turned and I saw a dark, tall figure standing in the lamplight. Good morning, the man said in a deep, caring, and soothing voice. Merry Christmas, Johnny. He was not Santa Claus. He did not look like the fat, round man with lengthy white beard, a red hat, red coat, and bulging red pants. He was not holding a big red bag over his shoulder, and there was no red-nosed reindeer beside him. He was the man in the picture I kept in my school bag. Papa! Daddy! Daddy! I shouted with joy. He hugged me with his strong, hairy arms. Granny stood beside him, smiling with tears in her eyes. She never told me that I would see my real Papa Noel for Christmas.
You want to give that copy? You want to give it? Thanks very much. Yeah, very well read. I think, yeah, so we have aspects of our culture. That's why I said in the beginning, you must listen, right? Listen to our grannies, listen to our fathers, listen to our, just be mindful, just open our mind's eyes to our cultural aspects. When we go to the market, when we go to a farm, just observe things. So when we are writing as writers, we have this experience which we can impart into our writing. So we have the beginning, right? We have the middle, that's the young boy, Johnny, who, can you tell us about Johnny, what you heard, what is that? Tell us about the story, what you understood.
Johnny was a young boy which he lived with his grandmother, and he had a pig, a small pig, which he grew up with, and he never knew his dad, but he had a picture of him and his dad, which was tall and round with red and handsome, and then John was a smart boy, which he didn't want nobody to eat his cute pig. And then he had a little trick to bring it to a man which had another pig, which he wanted her to have a boyfriend, so they could have little babies. And then Joe's plan worked, and then they didn't eat his small pig.
Very good. Anybody else? Anyone else? I want us to observe the culture. You see, Dominica, we're trying to sell Dominica as a premier ecotourism destination globally. And Dominica is not only the trees and the rivers and the mountains and the lakes, but our mores, our way of life, right? What we sell to the tourists. Because I was fortunate in attending the University of Miami Coral Gables. Myself, Ian Jackson, and another gentleman called Gerald Latouche. I won first prize in short story writing, and they won prizes in poetry. So we were awarded a fellowship for about 3-4 months to the University of Miami Coral Gables, where we met top writers in the Caribbean, George Lamin and others, right? And Dan Descartes from Haiti and top writers. And I never knew about the rudiments or how to really write. I was just writing. So I'm saying to you, just write. Anything comes to your mind, just write it, because you can never get it right the first time. So when I went there, I found about foreshadowing. What is foreshadowing, for example, is if you say in your story that the young lady had a cell phone in her hand, you cannot just say in a story that she had a cell phone in her hand. It must help towards the end of the story, to develop in the story. All right? That's called foreshadowing, telling before, all right? Yes, you have to set that as pointers in the story. So it is very important that we use a lot of our aspects. And our creole to our patois, right? In the story it said, cochon plein, meaning it's full. It's preggy, it's, you know, so a tourist or visitor reading our culture, our literature, he or she, it is almost explained to him or her what is meant by plain, you know, what is those things like that, preggy, you know, so they appreciate, and you also have pregnant, so they appreciate and will enjoy aspects of our culture, because that's one of the things that we learned at the university, that when Dan Descartes, who's the Haitian writer, she was a novelist, she wrote about her parents used to, you know, test them to see if they were still virgins. And that alone raised concern in America, you know, the Americans already, you know, and that helps sell her books. So they're looking for new aspects of culture, because to them it's just a normal white person literature, things like that, you know. But they're looking for new things which they can really open their minds to and do research on. All right. There's another piece I would like. But you read so well. I'd like you to read it again. There's another piece. This one is called The Menu. This is a new piece I wrote. It's The Menu, and it deals with because I'm putting together a number of short stories. And trying to finish 2 novels at the same time, so a lot of work. You know, this one deals with a character, you know, in the ghetto setting. It's a ghetto setting by the roadside in the suburb village. In some of the villages, we have some rough young ladies, right, and some rough men. So I was trying to capture one of those characters. And I want us to pay attention to dialogue, meaning language, in moving a story forward. You don't only have to use describing the scenery, but you could have 2 people speaking in dialogue, and those 2 people move the story forward, right? In explaining who they are, characterization, and so forth. So the menu is like in a restaurant setting, right? And those 2 characters are in conflict. They're in conflict with each other.
The menu. The girl walked hurriedly across the concrete street, then crossed the sidewalk to the restaurant on the other side. The sign above the door advertised, Yes or Kaye? Ye. Kaye J's Kitchen. She stopped for a brief moment to glance at the menu, written with white chalk on a square wooden blackboard standing on a tripod at the entrance. She sucked her teeth, then moved past the tables and chairs. There was no other customer inside. She was the first one to arrive. The woman behind the wooden counter was placing freshly cooked food in the warm showcase below. What do you have to eat? The girl asked. Say good morning, the woman told her cordially. My lady, if the morning was good for you, the girl answered, it was not good for me. Bon Dieu, my God is so then, the woman said. What you have to eat? The girl asked again. Everything on the menu, the woman replied. I want a pilau with plenty ketchup on it, the girl said, and free fried chicken wings in it. It don't have pilau, the woman said. But you say everything on the menu, the girl answered. That's what I said, the woman told her. Yes, true, is that you said, the girl replied. Everything on the menu. Okay, I did, the woman said, but it don't have pilau. So what it have? The girl asked. Everything you seen on the menu. But the menu don't have everything, the girl answered. I'm sure we have everything it has on it, the woman replied. You sure or you not sure? The girl asked. We have everything on the menu, the woman said. What joker restaurant that? The girl said and asked. My lady, you take me for a fool? I don't think you are, the woman answered. But you telling me everything on the menu, the girl said. You ask, the woman reminded her. I know what I asked, the girl interrupted. I asked what you have to eat. And I know what I replied, the woman said. I replied everything on the menu. But my lady, everything not on the menu, the girl shouted. What is on it? We have, the woman informed her. You don't have pilau, the girl answered. Is it on the menu? The woman asked. You tell me, the girl said. It is on your menu. It's everybody's menu, the woman remarked, for all clients to read. Well, it's not for me, the girl answered. Why? Because it don't have pilau on it. I never told you it has pilau on it. Yes, you did. When did I say that? When I asked what I have to eat, what it have to eat, the girl answered. You said everything on the menu. So pilau must be there. Yes, I said everything on the menu, but what? The girl questioned. But, the woman told her, it's plain English. Any school child can understand. My lady, it's not you alone that go school. I never said that, my girl. So I telling you it don't have pilau on the menu. Sakwe tone, damn it, the woman shouted. Can't you read? What happened you alone that can read? Mind me, my girl. But it's sounding like it's that you saying. My girl, you asked what we have to eat? The woman repeated. I said everything on the menu. But my lady, everything not on the menu. It don't have pilau on it. My Lord, how can it have pilau when it's not on the menu? Ask yourself that, the girl said. It seems Henderson you to raise my blood pressure early morning. Me not raising your blood pressure, the girl said. Or your stupid menu. But where you come out now? Dominica, just like you, the girl said. Which school you attend? Same one you and your daughter attend. Hey, hello, the woman replied. My daughter not in your category. Girl, dismiss me, please. You is a problem. That is a problem, the girl said. Ask you what you have to eat. You telling me everything on the menu and pilau not on it. No, is a problem. The woman stepped back from behind the counter and stood in front of the blackboard. She shook her head, then looked at the girl. It do have pilau, the girl told her mockingly. Why should it have pilau? Did you read the menu? Because you said, the girl answered, everything on the menu. So I didn't have to read it. My girl, it's best you leave my restaurant, the woman said. You's a bag of trouble. It is a public place, the girl answered. I will leave when I have to. Good morning, Kaye, a young man interrupted as he walked into the restaurant. Good morning, Sam, the woman answered. Can I help you? In a while, he said, before reading the menu aloud. Breakfast menu, egg sandwich, $5, ham sandwich, $5, cheese sandwich, $5, titiwi akora, 50 cents, dry bakes, 50 cents, stuffed bakes, $2, smoked herring, codfish, cheese, tuna, hot dog, $2, boiled egg, $1, Seymour sorrel, grapefruit, passion fruit juice, small, $3, medium, $4, large, $5. The girl looked at the young man with a sneer. Her nose turned up and her lips pushed forward. Kaye, he said, give me an egg sandwich, free titiwi akra, 4 stuffed bakes, 1 of each, and a large simos. I don't want tomato in the sandwich, I'm allergic to it. And put the stuffed bakes in a bag, I go in with it. You see? Everything not on the menu, the girl said to the woman. It don't have pilau on it. My girl, the woman told her, I already told you to leave my restaurant. Just evacuate the premises. Vamos, ale, go. I don't have time to waste with you. Sam glanced at the girl, then turned to the woman and said, Kaye, don't worry about mamselle. A troublemaker and a dunce cat that. Hush there, Mako, the girl said as she walked out of the restaurant. I know, Sam answered her. You don't eat my money. You don't eat my money, though. It's not even 9 o'clock in the morning. You're asking for pilau. Spell pilau, na. Spell pilau. The girl did not answer him. She hurried away, mumbling. You know her, Sam? The woman asked. I ran away from some village, Sam answered. It don't even well have a week since she surfaced on the block. Not submarine at the surface, na? Kaye said, laughing. Sam, you will kill me, we. She just appeared, Sam added. Sam, what money that she don't eat? The woman behind the counter asked. That is another story, Kaye. You too like Beth. Sam said with his mouth full. Lord, the woman said, lifting her head up to heaven. Watch my daughter, yes, Lord? Sam was sitting at one of the wrong tables eating. Awa, no, Kaye, he said. Don't worry, Genevieve, not in that.
All right. Okay, so it looks like you all enjoyed the story, right? Again, right? It's dialogue, use of dialogue to bring a story forward and give an idea of the character that is being portrayed and also and both characters, and gives you an idea of the setting of the restaurant, right? Though you're not there, but you have a and also it tells you that if you listen carefully, the girl cannot read. I mean, the menu is at the front. She walks past it, you know, and she just could not tell that there's no pillar on it, you know. So it makes it interesting. So this is what we should do. Always listen, always observe our environment, wherever we go, or a restaurant, wherever, whether we're traveling on a plane or on a seashore, and just try to visualize and internalize everything. So when we're writing as writers, we can use those experiences in portraying or in literary way, bring it forward. Anyone wants to give a little The young people, you again? Come.
I still appreciate the two perspectives that come from the story, because on somebody can still look on the other hand and said, she did tell her everything is on the menu, because this is a sentence that you can interpret differently. Everything is on the menu. So as far as she's concerned, she stressed on the word everything. You're right. So she said, right, no, she said everything is on the menu. So if everything is on the menu, she's expecting to see pilau. And on the other side, no, she's using the sentence, everything is on the menu. She's stressing on that word, on the menu. So, you know, it just shows a play of how you can use words and how people can interpret words differently, because the girl is adamant. You said everything. If you really have to look at it, technically she's not wrong, you know. But the thing is that the lady in the restaurant, she clarified what she meant. So after she clarified what she meant, she should have agreed. But you still couldn't blame her for believing everything. You say everything, so if I saw pilau, if I saw shrimp, because some people perceive the menu as not just what they see, but what you sell. So that was the nice play on the words of the story.
Too strong-minded people, right? To adamant people. I said everything on the menu. I said no, it's not on the menu. You know, and it shows character. Right, a conflict, people in conflict. Oh, not good customer service. In a sense, yes. But. Yes. Yes. But I wanted to show character, you know, with both people being strong-minded people, and the lady being taken aback by the girl not saying good morning. And I say, my lady, if the morning good for you, it's not good for me. And that alone started the conflict. You know? It's morning good. What's a good morning? I mean, the morning is not good for you. It's not good. So that alone started the whole.
The girl was was super disrespectful, because he or she just came in the restaurant and said, what do you have in the menu? She didn't say good morning or anything. And plus, how she speak or he speak to the lady wasn't a proper way to speak.
Okay. So what she's saying, the girl's attitude in the beginning, it just threw the lady off. And as you mentioned, it's customer relations, right? She had sort of service, she just sort of poor. She just left that alone and just say, okay, we have this, we have that. But, sorry? Yes. The young girl transferred her character to the lady, who maybe was that kind of person too, could never tell before. And then she just came out of her. Yeah. Yes, but a banter, you know. So it helped move the story forward and gave joy to the reader in listening, in reading, and drew the attention of the reader in reading those pieces. So I want to leave for us. Yes, I'm leaving. I'm ending. Yeah. So I want to leave for us the importance of beginning, middle, end, plot, types of writing, descriptive, your character, and the culturalization, building cultural aspects into our writing. Do we have any pieces of our own that we want to read or share? You are a reader today.
Okay, so that's written. Okay, that's from, yes, written by, what's your name? Okay, Original descriptive essay. The old adage that dogs are man's best friend cannot be proven to be truer. Let me start again. The old adage that dogs are man's best friend cannot be proven to be truer. Named Duchess, she proved to be a good playmate, companion, and guard. Losing her was the most heart-wrenching experiences I have ever had. Strange but true. She was a stray dog that ventured right to our doorstep, and my family and I embraced her as if she was purchased for $1 million from the finest pet shop. This dog was strong, energetic, friendly, and smart. The only thing it could not do, was talk. We admired the way she took care of its pups and almost completely imitated my mom's mothering skills. It was never greedy or unhappy, but rather loving and obedient. It was a good hunter, and I often felt sorry for the iguanas that it caught so easily and skillfully. No one escaped passing through the neighborhood unnoticed, as the coded bark informed of the presence of a stranger. We had fun playing with balls. Duchess seemed to play the role of referee when the family enjoyed a game of cricket. You could tell, though, that it preferred the football games, as getting its paw onto the ball was much easier. Duchess was also loved by my retired neighbors who graphically revealed her dating habits to us on our return home. The greatest story was about the house she built in the grass nearby for her and her mate. One day, though, things changed. I came home to a cheerless-looking, painful dog. There were no hugs. The tail lay still and no escort up the stairs. This worried me gravely. The vet was called when the unwanted news was made. Dogs do not live for more than about 5, you know, Mr. Tousse said. The dismay on my face forced him to find some encouraging news, so he quickly added, some antibiotics will allow for full recovery. As the day went by, however, old age took its toll. It was also revealed that he was now blind in one eye and arthritis had taken over the leg. We watched helpless as he bounced himself, trying to take the routine paths around the yard. Climbing the step quickly became impossible. She even needed help to find her food bowl. But then she had suffered several injuries due to falls and knocking of herself. Each time the vet visited, he advised that we put her to sleep because she was now aching, almost completely blind and in a lot of pain. This once upon a time golden brown, fluffy tail, and folded ear, pink-nosed terrier dog had lost all its luster, energy, and skills. We, however, kept praying for a miracle. Though hurting and afraid of losing her, we often took turns at caring for her because she was now twice a child. But I could see the look in her eyes, and her forced grunt stopped my heart. It was time. I gathered the family around, and I was in denial. I couldn't believe I was about to say these words. I wiped the sweat off my brow, trying to hide my inner struggle. How could I thought. What would I do without her? We grew up together, I gasped. I had been holding my breath, but she was old now and needed to grow up. Parting my dry lips, I said, I think we should do it. Their instant look of shock and disagreement was soon replaced with understanding, and a gloom hung over the room for a few seconds. Then Mother made the call to Dr. Tousse. One by one, we all said goodbye to Duchess, promising her she will go to doggy heaven. I choked on the salt of my tears. There you go. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes. Okay. Anybody else have to share?
Any comments?
No.
Okay, your poem. You can read your poem. Because there's also what you call prose poetry. All right? Jaco, everybody you hinted at that. It's like short story in poetry form. You know, I've been dabbling with that. I won an award, the Balau sale, but I don't have it now. But you can read your poem and try to see where you see aspects of short story in there. You know, being the middle, end, and characterization, theme, those things like that. All right?
Okay. I need to raise that down because okay, I was under the impression that we were supposed to, because our KIP Theatre Arts class is here this morning, and I thought we were supposed to have a poem prepared for today, but you know, I felt inspired this morning when I woke up to do this poem, so it came like a freestyle, so there it is. I don't quite have a title for it yet. I'm thinking Savior or I'm Saved. So here it is. I can use that? Yeah, it's kind of a spoken word. Stuck in the doom and gloom in the dark. Yes, in a dark room where I could not find a spark. Searching for a switch, nowhere to turn. None can be found. So you long and you yearn. Eyes open shut, I can see but I'm blind. Can't see ahead, can't see behind. A deafening silence that torments my soul. What should I feel? What to behold? Whoosh. A sweet breeze caresses my skin. A glimpse of hope, a presence within. I'm not alone. Who else and what could be here? I'm buried in the abyss on my eternal journey to nowhere. Help, I try to say, but I haven't spoken for so long. My speech, I'm terrified, will be so wrong. Intricate, tiny, lovely memories and thoughts sip in. My entire being, my countenance, is it changing? My impaired vision begins to subside. A light for me? Or is it time to get fried? He touches me, and there's such light and beauty. Wow, can this be real? This power, this fire, this presence that I feel? I stagger for a voice to speak. I'm amazed, I'm excited, yet still I feel so meek. Holy, 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 I hear come from me. Lord Jesus, thank you for saving me. That's it.
Okay.
Jacko, any comments?
Yeah, well, I was just saying, I like the contradictions, especially when you started, your contradictions that you were using. Almost like when what struck me about that song by John Legend, when you had the contradiction, your perfect imperfections, and you had certain things like that happening, blind and can see, and yes, yeah. So basically, that's sort of anytime you're doing a piece, whether it's poetry or prose, something must capture the reader imagination, or the listener, and from that it captured me, and the thing fooled. And then the combination of using music and sound in poetry is also something new, and it's performance style also, all that's part of performance style when you use that aspect of it. So I find it was very touchy and deep, the story, the poem, and you really had to sort of get into it to understand it. And that is poetry. Anytime you cannot read a poem once, a good piece of poem, you cannot read it once and then, everything comes to you. You must read it a couple times. I always tell my students that you must read a poem a couple times. And then read a poem once and it comes to you is because personally may not take much time for thought and use of words to make it happen. So yes, they're an interesting piece. Yeah.
All right, thanks very much. Limericks, and basically that's the same thing in short story writing. When you capture the mind of the reader, onomatopoeia. It's called onomatopoeia. You heard of that, right? Onomatopoeia. It's like blur and swish and those kind of words, which gives visualization. Rustling of the leaves. Actually, hear the rust. You hear the So it's called onomatopoeia. It's important that we, as I said, that we listen, that we read a lot, read different. Even now with the new change of the whole world is going to another gear. It has shifted into gear, right? The old world we knew before COVID. COVID is like the juncture, right? We're going to a new world order, and call it that. The need for vaccination cards, cashless society. It's already happening in Dominica. I know a friend of mine who's already making transaction with his friend in Roseau, and he's paid him through Bitcoin. Through Bitcoin. He pays him on his Bitcoin thing, and he comes for whatever. It's happening now in Roseau already. So as writers, we have to be aware of all those things happening and how the world changes, because we have audiences and readers whom we need to capture their mindset. And our readers and audience are not only in Dominica, but overseas. And how we marry our culture with things that are happening now all around. And be poetic, the need for being poetic. And again, Ian mentioned song in poetry. You can also use sound in short story. As you mentioned in one of the short stories that we read, my real Papa Noel, one lady was singing, one day at a time, Sweet Jesus. That again draws the attention of readers. Anybody has any piece that you want to share with us again? Or any comment that you want to make before we wrap up?
Just a comment though, I really tend to agree with you for the fact that you must read. I remember when I was studying, I'm a very good writer. I can write essays and papers and so on. But, and I was studying, my tutor told me, you're a good writer, but I tell her I don't read. She said, I can see that. And that's one of the reasons that drew me here, And I'm happy that I came because you kind of emphasize something I know I should do more. And so the reading will help you to get other perspectives, see things from different points of views, and be able to incorporate it into your work. So I really support you and the youngsters. Take it from him. Read a little more, I like awareness of your environment. Sometimes, things become oblivious to us. But if we can, just a little awareness, that's why you were able to write that dialogue. I'm sure it's a true story, right? No? Imaginative? Okay. So at least that's my takeaway, that we should really read more and be aware of environment and use those experiences into, because I really want to go into playwright and those kinds of things. But somehow, sometimes I start and I figure, oh my God, I'm limited. But here's the answer. So thank you very much.
Actually, the story which was read, the menu, I read a lot, so I love Hemingway, and he's one of my one of my mentors. So he has a story, The Killers, right? Two killers enter in a restaurant and stuff, that kind of dialogue thing. So I just took that kind of theme and just wrote the menu. So you have to read a lot. And if you read Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, right? He uses a lot of patois in there. And he explains the patois, the patois words in that given sentence, so you have an idea of what he's speaking about. All right, the halibut, and he explains it, and what, and this, you know, so it's important that you read other writers. Some musicians, they listen to Asa Banton, and see some of the young boy is coming up. They don't have they say style in writing, style is the man, but you don't see that style as being theirs. It's like they emulate or they copying. Right? So you need to, it has to influence you, but you have to come up with your own style, your own you, right? Your own voice in writing, your own style of writing, which would let your readers or your audience identify you as that person. All right? Read. That's what I can say. Read and write. Don't stop writing. There was a workshop where a writer, a famous writer, came to teach that workshop. And the first thing he said is, how many of you love writing? And everybody put up their hands. And he just turned around and left the class. And he said, go home and write. Yeah, go home and write. Because it was in my time. Just write. Anything idea comes to you, man, just write. I have a box, right? And this box has pieces, stories I've started. On my cell phone, you might say I'm not chatting to some chick or whatever. I have a whole novel on there, right? Every time I go in the toilet or wherever, I'm just adding stuff. Could be one word, one sentence, one idea, add stuff. So just continue writing, and maybe one day you might be a Nobel Prize winner. All right? Okay, so thank you very much. I guess this is the end of our session.